In my younger years, I would hear the words generation gap used to describe what today we might call the generational divide. Both terms signify the space that exists between the ideas, values, and trends of two different generations. The tension and anxiety that exists between older and younger folks is nothing new. A popular quotation attributed to Socrates says, "The children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in place of exercise. Children are now tyrants, not the servants of their households. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents, chatter before company, gobble up dainties at the table, cross their legs, and tyrannize their teachers." In the Gospels, we hear Jesus express frustration over the generation of his time. Jesus said, "An evil and unfaithful generation seeks a sign, but no sign will be given it except the sign of Jonah the prophet. Just as Jonah was in the belly of the whale 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth 3 days and 3 nights. At the judgment, the men of Nineveh will arise with this generation and condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and there is something greater than Jonah here. At the judgment, the queen of the south will arise with this generation and condemn it, because she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and there's something greater than Solomon here." In another passage, Jesus says, "To what shall I compare this generation? It is like children who sit in marketplaces and call to one another, 'We played the flute for you, but you did not dance. We sang you a dirge, but you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they said, He is possessed by a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they said, Look, he is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is vindicated by her works." In these previous examples, Socrates' complaint sounds much like what any old curmudgeon might say even today about the young people nowadays, whereas Jesus' words express frustration over people in his own time. In the two gospel passages, Jesus complains about the apparent lack of faith reflected in those who beg for a sign as proof of the veracity of the teachings of Jesus, or demonstrate their lack of satisfaction in the diversity of ways by which God proclaims the coming of the kingdom, be it through the asceticism of John the Baptist or the joy-filled celebratory characteristics of Jesus' ministry. But there is another side to this shared frustration found in a younger generation's easy dismissal of the older one. Humans seem to be hardwired to reject the culture, values, and wisdom of their elders. Parents are often disappointed that their children, particularly when they reach their teen years, rebel and reject beliefs and values that previous generations hold dear. It does happen that as a younger generation ages, they do come to accept much of the conventional wisdom and recognize the values of the previous generation's contributions, even if profound differences and resentments, real or imagined, continue to simmer in the background. What defines a generation is based on less than a scientific method. Popular notions dictate perceptions of alleged characteristics of people born within a 20 to 25 year span. The dividing lines between one generation and the next are artificially defined by the beginning or end of decades dating back to the turn of the 20th century. Observations, impressions, and assumptions made about people born in a two-decade period are gleaned from popular culture, whether published in written form or recorded on film, audio, video, and various media formats. It all makes for fascinating discussion and reflection, but a great deal of caution must be brought to bear on any serious discussion. As a boomer myself, I get annoyed when bloggers who identify themselves as millennials boldly claim that the baby boomer generation has ruined the world. These writers and tweeters often rehash past controversies and conflicts that are no longer relevant today. They see the ills of the present and believe themselves to be unfairly saddled by problems inherited from their parents or even grandparents, and express their frustration in having to deal with a world they did not create. For myself, I have avoided criticizing other generations, past, present, and future, and seek to dispel such attacks. In doing so, I have been subjected to even further attacks. You simply can't win. My comments on dealing with this tension on blogs, vlogs, and social media are these. In writing pieces for publication, there are certain aspects of critical thinking that must be understood when stating an argument. Critical thinking involves knowledge of some basic fallacies and an understanding as to how they undermine the credibility of a person's argument. One such common fallacy is known as hasty generalization. This is where one characterizes an entire group of people based on quickly formed judgments, assumptions, or perceptions. This is the sort of thing that leads to stereotyping or racially profiling someone. As I said earlier, the practice of dividing people born on this planet into 20 or 25-year generations is an artificial practice. This method of defining generations is probably based on the assumption that a new generation begins about every 25 years, the average age when parents begin to beget their own children. Combine this assumption with our structure of years and decades, and what emerges is the tradition of labeling those born within 20 or 25-year periods going back to the dawn of the 20th century. The label baby boomers became attached to those born from the time the United States entered World War II, 1941, or soon after the war's end, 1945. Many marriages occurred during and after the war, resulting in a boom in the birth rate in the United States in a way never before seen. The number of births reached at its height around 1950 slowly decreased throughout the decade and then dropped off considerably by the mid-1960s. The post-war baby boom fueled substantial economic growth in the U.S. Many houses were built, new urban and suburban communities came into existence, creating a demand for new schools, and inspired the development of products of great interest to children, which were directly advertised to them during children's programs that were broadcast by means of a new medium known as television. The problem with characterizing all children born and bred over a 20-year period, during which a great deal of socio-economic developments were taking place, is that not all children experienced these changes at the same time. 25 years is a long time, and besides the advances of the time, there were also many changes on the political landscape, and television brought into the home a sanitized reflection of suburban life in both adult and children's programming. Although I come from a mostly boomer family, I have siblings who remember a life before television. I do not. I was born in 1955, 10 years after the end of the Second World War. A great deal of change had already taken place. Children's television programs and products were becoming more sophisticated. One sub-label for those of us born in the late 50s and early 60s was the Joneses generation, owing to the popular phrase, keeping up with the Joneses. As the wealth grew, so did the competition to have everything money could buy. 2 new cars, the latest stereo electronics, color television, the latest fashions, accessories, and toys.